Welcome back, class. This video will serve as your lesson demonstration for the project, so please feel free to come back and watch this video as many times as you need, to rewind it, fast forward it, pause it, but please make sure you watch this video the first time in its entirety so you can soak up all the information and just get the basic introduction to all the lesson steps. I am going to be moving pretty quickly, so again, please pause this as you need to. I only have a 15-minute limit for this recording, so I want to make sure I get everything in. So your first step is to draw your horizon line. Your horizon line is this line in the middle of the paper. You want to draw that very lightly because you will be doing a lot of erasing as the project goes on. All right, so that's step one. Now, before I get to step two, I just want to quickly discuss the picture here. If you were to shift the horizon line from the center to the top, you would essentially have a worm's eye perspective where you're looking up at something. And if you were to shift that horizon line down lower, you would be at a bird's eye perspective looking down from the sky, from the top down. I would advise everyone to stay in the center to keep that ground level perspective. You are welcome to shift the line, but at least for today, or keep that ground level perspective, the line in the middle, unless you feel confident enough changing the perspective. That is your choice. It's not that you can't, I just recommend it's in the middle. So once you have your horizon line in the middle of your paper, you're then going to add your vanishing point. So your vanishing point right here, that is this red dot in the middle. You are not adding a red dot. You are using your pencil to add your line in the middle of the paper, and it has to be on the horizon line. You cannot add your dot someplace else. It has to be on that line specifically. So these first two steps should be pretty easy. And before you move forward, I just want to reiterate, or actually state for the first time, that you should be completing this project on paper. Even though I'm demonstrating this on my laptop digitally, this is just for demonstration purposes. You should be using your ruler, a pencil, and paper with an eraser, of course, to make your project. You are not making this digitally. All right, so first horizon line, then your vanishing point. Easy enough. Next step is step three. Step three, you're going to angle your ruler from the vanishing point to draw two lines to make your road. So to show you what that looks like, I'm going to take my ruler here. This is this translucent like gray line. I want to make sure my ruler is touching the vanishing point, and I'm going to draw one line of my road. Then I'm going to draw the other line on my road over here. The key is that both lines go towards the vanishing point, or actually converge and hit at that point. That's the focus of the whole project. Even though it's just two lines and we're making a pretty easy road, that encompasses the entire rules of linear perspective. So as long as your angles are always going towards this vanishing point, you will always follow the rules of linear perspective. And I'll tell you more of that, or explain more of what I mean as I move forward. And again, guys, I'm sorry if I'm talking a little fast. I just have a short time limit for this video. Again, you can always pause and rewind as needed. So step four, we now want to draw two additional lines on each side of the road. What this is going to do is this is going to make it look like you can actually step up onto the curb. It gives it more sense of three-dimensionality. It gives it some thickness instead of just being, one clean line. This adds a little bit more realism to your project. So again, you would just take your ruler and just add one thin line going towards the vanishing point, and then another line up top to show the top part of the curb. All right. So again, that should be easy enough. I think most of you will be able to follow that. If not, just message me and I can help you. Or you can rewind the video and start from the beginning of that step. All right, so step five, once you have your horizon line with the vanishing point and then you have your road coming out from the center, that really is just your framework. We've really just begun. So even though it says step five, this is really in a way step one. What you're about what we're about to discuss is you're going to basically first draw a rectangle as the first of three steps in creating a building in one-point perspective. So like I just said, we're going to take, let me get my highlighter here. You draw a rectangle, just a regular rectangle with your ruler. Please make sure you use a ruler. And you want to make sure that all your sides are parallel with the paper. And what that means is when you're drawing your lines, please don't draw your lines that are up and down at an angle. See how my ruler is angled compared to the paper itself? You want to make sure your ruler is perfectly straight with the side of the paper, and your ruler is perfectly straight with the top edge of the paper as well. What I would do before you actually draw your line, just make sure, is my ruler straight? No. Let me straighten it. Is it straight now? Yes. Then connect it. But please be mindful of whether your ruler is straight or not with the paper. And then once you're done, erase your horizon line with every building you draw. So as something goes over top of something, you can't see it anymore. Just as if I were to put my hand in front of my face, I can't see the details of my face anymore. So that just shows why it was so important to draw your horizon line lightly so you can erase it as you go. All right, so that is step 5, which is essentially really step 1 for drawing your building's one-point perspective. Step 6, we are now going to angle our ruler to touch the vanishing point and a corner of your rectangle. It's important that you do both. So we're going to take our ruler and we're going to connect it to the corner and the vanishing point. So I'm going to take my ruler here and I'm going to angle it. Right now it's touching the corner and the vanishing point, so that would create the correct angle. If I was not touching the vanishing point, but I was touching the corner, that would be wrong. If I was touching, sorry guys, I'm trying to turn my ruler. If I was touching the vanishing point but not the corner, that would be wrong. It must touch both. That is key to making sure you are following the rules of perspective properly. And then you also want to, I would also connect the bottom corner as well. And yes, a rectangle and square do have 4 corners. The reason we're not connecting the top right or bottom left corner is because if I did that, I would draw a line that would cut through the building. So that's why we're not doing that. You're only doing these 2 corners. And you do not need to draw these actual circles here on the corner. That is just for demonstration purpose. But essentially you are first drawing your regular rectangle, your flat side of your building. Then you're going to angle the lines to go towards the vanishing point. So again, the lines go directly to that point, and that creates a mathematical angle. You do not need to draw, I see this a lot, and I'm saying this to save you guys a lot of time and hassle. You do not need to draw the line to go all the way to the point. Again, it creates the angle. Because if you did that, and I only wanted my line to end right here, I'd have to then erase all of this. So all you need to do is line the ruler up, and as long as the ruler is lined up, you can draw your line as short or as long as you want to, but it doesn't need to go to the point, just the ruler needs to line up. But the line can be as long or short as you want. All right, so first draw your flat side, then angle it, and then lastly you're going to connect your side with your ruler. So you're going to connect both lines with your ruler right here. So this red line would be me connecting both sides, and then there is your 3-dimensional building. Wash, rinse, repeat. You guys are just going to keep repeating the same steps. But just to show you what not to do, and I see this a lot, I see students, let me just fix my perspective guidelines here. I see students do this a lot where one line will be longer than the other, and that's okay, that happens. It's near impossible to make it perfect every time. But if that happens, please do not take your ruler and connect the lines like that. Note your ruler is not straight with the edge of the paper. You want all lines to be parallel with the paper because this gives that angled look like your building is shifting sideways. You would instead want to take your shortest line, draw a line perfectly straight up with that line, and then you can erase whatever is left after the fact just to clean that up. Again, as long as you press lightly, you can always erase everything. So the steps, again, draw a flat side of your building, angle the corners to the vanishing point, and then connect it. Rectangle, angle, connect, rectangle, angle, connect. It's the same 3 steps over and over again. So I will show that in step 8 here. So step 8 says to repeat steps 5 through 7. So you can see that I first drew the flat side of my building, then I angled it, then I connect it. And I did that with 1, 2, 3, 4 more buildings. And it's amazing how just 4 buildings can fill the space. Please make sure you're focusing on filling the space of your entire paper. That is important in any artwork to make it engaging, to make it look complete, to make it look full. Because the more space you fill, the more engaging, the more interesting it is going to be. All right, so make sure you are repeating those 3 steps to fill the entire paper. Once your paper is filled with buildings, this is a step a lot of students forget to do, and this is a very important step, which is in your lesson objectives. Make sure you add interior details to each building. You want each building to have its own identity, so you'll add windows and doors. You can add a bunch of other things, like I could have added an AC unit at the top. I could have added lights, windowsills, blinds, whatever you want to add details to your buildings. And make sure you add details to all your buildings. I'm running a little short on time, so I'm going to try to rush through this one reminder. Students often forget to angle the top lines. Sorry guys, it's not working. To angle the top lines to go towards the vanishing point. Please make sure, again, your ruler is always touching the vanishing point when you're drawing details on the sides of your buildings. The details on the front, the flat side of your buildings will always be flat. They will always be perfectly horizontal and vertical for the dimensions of the shape, but when you're adding something on the angled side, it has to be angled. So details on the flat side are flat, details on the angled side have to be angled to the vanishing point. And the angles do change. So if I put my ruler right here on the vanishing point, you can see my line goes from the bottom left to the top right. And as I shift my ruler, it slowly starts to change from now the top left to the bottom right. You can see these lines down here are changing. So not all the angles are the same. They do shift. And what I would advise doing is always having your pencil right here on the vanishing point, so you can pivot your ruler around that. That is an easy way to make sure your ruler is always touching the vanishing point and your angles are always going where they need to go. So once you have your buildings, you filled your space, and you started to learn how to add details. Lastly, just keep adding details. Keep adding the building details. See how far you can take it, and then your project will be done. It does not need to be in color. It is just a pencil drawing. If you want to shade in black and white and the grayscale, you can, but it does not need to be in color. So what I want to do is show you some examples beyond what I've just shown you. These are past student examples. Here on the right, I have a fantasy world. This student, I think, drew elves in their artwork because they love the fantasy aspect. They're very intrigued by that, and they added that in their artwork. And you should always create something that you can connect to in your art. Over here, the student drew this amusement park and also the boardwalk to look like they're at the beach because they love spending time at the beach. Here we have a street with lights. I think this was based around the Stranger Things show. And then you can see all the different building details in this building here. I'm going to zoom in a bit. So these are all some creative, excellent examples. I believe all these students got 100% on their projects. This student designed theirs to look like their favorite anime show. I forget the name of it, but it takes place in the Wild West. You can even see the wanted poster, these tumbleweeds. And look at all these details in the buildings. Each building has its own identity. They even focused on the background, having this hat blowing in the wind and this hot air balloon with the clouds and the sun. You can see they did an excellent job filling the space with their paper. But most importantly, they made it original. They made it their own. They made it creative. Because despite all the rules of linear perspective, we should be looking how to make this project our own, make it fun. This student had this airplane right here drop an atomic bomb, which made this huge explosion, which is basically tearing through the city and destroying everything. But they followed the rules of linear perspective, and they made it creative, and they made it their own, which was great. And then, sorry guys, I only have like a minute and a half left. So lastly, those are some examples of doing a city drawing. So you have the option of either doing a city drawing, a single building landscape, or the inside of a room. And in the next minute or so, I'm going to very quickly try to show you how to do that. So if you chose not to do the city and you said, you know what, I want to do something a little different. I want to do a single building, just like this farmhouse here, this barn house. If you're going to do that, because the city has so many buildings, so many details, you still need to have a heavy amount of detail in your landscape. You can't just draw one building with one window and door and then be done with it. Notice how this artist added all these details of the barn doors, of the windows, the roof, the solo, the fence, the road, all these things, all of those angle to the vanishing point. So please make sure that if you're doing a single building landscape, you are still having enough details that show the understanding that everything goes to the vanishing point. And that also applies to the interior room. So if you didn't want to do a city and you didn't want to do just one building, you could do the inside of a room. I'm running out of time. So please make sure you choose which design you want, and then just build upon that. So even the room has a horizon line, it has a vanishing point, and notice how all the lines and angles